Some of the things that they were, excited about early in the season don't exist now, and the bowl game is, certainly a reward for young people and the program. So they understand that. They want to go to a bowl game, and they understand what they have to do in order to make that happen. I say they know what they have to do. They know what they have to do in regards to wins and losses, and now it's a matter of knowing what you have to do in order to put yourself in a position to be successful again, and to correct the mistakes that we make and improve in areas that we need to improve upon.
Yesterday on the teleconference, you mentioned that you thought Tech's quarterback Nick Shimonek's is a younger version and could possibly become like what Pat Mahomes was last year at Tech. What are some of the things specifically you see out of him that kind of give you that analysis of him and the potential for him to have games like that in the future and possibly even this weekend?
Well, for a young quarterback, he's I say young. I mean, he's got some experience behind him, but hasn't been on the field in a starting role, all that long. But he's he has a good deal of poise about him. He seems to have a very good understanding of what they do at Texas Tech. He throws the ball well. He's he can run it if he has to. He's he's not the fastest youngster in the world, but he certainly can run the ball, bring it down on scrambles, quarterback draws. They've got a few other things they can do with him in the running game. They don't do a great deal of, but he certainly is capable of it, and they utilize him from time to time in that way. He's had, they throw the ball around an awful lot, and he throws it enough to, in practice as well as in games to, he's got, an exceptional amount of experience as it relates to, a nationwide scope of quarterbacks in regards to how much they throw the football. He just has more experience because they're throwing it more, or they throw it more. But by the same token, they, from an offensive standpoint, collectively, and this doesn't address him necessarily, but they have devoted themselves, for the appropriate reasons, I think, a wise choice on their part, to enhance the running game and create a little bit more balance in their offense. They've done that, and I think it's been effective for them.
Last week the defense had 4 sacks. Was that a product of a better pass rush, or maybe a little more aggressive with more blitzing?
Well, I think the fact that our blitzes were effective, against them, that was one. I mean, and we got them both ways. I mean, we got them with the 4-man rush and just did a nice job individual pass protection. We got one with with kind of what you'd call a coverage sack. And then we got a couple with the blitzes, so it was spread out across the board.
How tough is that against Tech? I mean, as far as how quick they release the ball in the passing game.
Well, it's hard against anybody, no matter who you line up and play against. It's always difficult against them, but for the same reason that you mentioned. I mean, because they like to get it out of his hands as quickly as they possibly can, and that's where the coverage comes into place. If you have receivers covered well, then he probably has to hold the ball a little bit longer, and that gives you a better chance to get the pressure that you need.
Tanner Wood seems to be kind of hitting his stride in the last couple of games. What's pleased you most with his performance on the defensive line?
Well, I think Tanner has played well, all season. I think he's, as we've gone through the season, he's just a young guy that works extremely hard. He's a young guy that cares. He's a young guy that wants to do it right. He's a good teammate. When you go to the practice field, you know that he's going to make the effort to become a better player on that given day, and more often than not, he does. And so it's just a natural growth, that comes to players that have that kind of approach and that kind of an attitude. And he does some things that show up. Get a sack, bat a ball down, which he's done, several times this year. Those kind of things that kind of allow people to get their eyeballs attracted to him. But you know, he's still got some areas to improve upon. He understands that. You know, so made some mistakes in the running game this last week, but overall, you know, plays well, and you know you're going to get the dead level best out of him every snap.
Given that he was such a gifted athlete coming out of high school, did you put any thought of using him at multiple places or trying him out at the different spots in defensive end, or was that always where he was marking him?
Well, as I recall, you know, I can't think back to his freshman year right now, but you know, as I recall, it was seemed to be where he fit. You know, I thought his athletic ability, given his physical structure, you know, I'm a big fan of moving. We call it moving guys forward, moving players forward, and you know, you love to have defensive backs that can move forward and play at some realm of linebacker position, and linebackers that can move forward and play defensive ends, and defensive ends that can move forward and play interior defensive line. In other words, taking athletes and putting them in a position where the normal athletic capability of that position is not as great. And you know, but in order to do that, you know, someone has to have that size to go along with the athletic ability or the capabilities of growing into, you know, the position. You know, you can't take a you know, a 205-pound linebacker and be too successful moving him up to a defensive end just because he's athletic. But if he, you know, if he has that athletic ability and you can get enough weight on him to play that position, then he just enhances the position by having a better athlete there. So it doesn't always, you know, we haven't been able to do that with, you know, a ton of guys, but we've done it with several, and it's been very beneficial for them.
Coach, I think the obvious question for us to ask you today would be your most memorable Halloween costume.
You know, I was so well prepared to answer that because I knew that was coming. I have what is my most memorable Halloween costume? Well, the only one that I can remember is having a bandana and a cowboy hat. You know, when I was a little bitty too, you know, we couldn't afford costumes, etc. And so I had my uncle, you know, had a cowboy hat that he gave me, and I don't know where I got the bandana, but you know, so I would go, you know, door to door with a sack and my bandana, and I was a cowboy.
Coach, I know it hasn't always been as consistent as you'd like, but your team currently ranks second in the Big 12 in rushing. What do you think is key to the running game, the rushing output against Oklahoma and Kansas in recent weeks?
Well, you know, I think, you know, some young guys up front that, you know, that block well. A good, you know, the major portion of the time. Quarterbacks have been able to run the ball, you know, well. Running backs have done a decent job as well. And it's just, you know, the better we execute things, and the better we can throw the ball, probably the better we're going to run the ball. Now, we didn't, you know, 2 games ago against Oklahoma, we were able to throw, you know, some deep balls, you know, that I think assisted our run game. Last week we didn't throw a great deal, but you know, the percentage, you know, was high. So you know, the fact that you put, you know, Alex Delton on the field or Skylar Thompson, and if there's you know, the threat that they can throw the ball, then you know, it makes people have to defend both the run and the pass, and that gives us a better chance to run it.
All of a sudden, Alex Barnes is threatening to become the first K-State running back since Daniel Thomas to have 3 straight 100-yard rushing games. What do you like? What's impressing you about what Alex has been able to do with the ball in his hands and in keying these efforts that he's had lately?
Well, I think first and foremost is he's pretty adept at following his blocks. You know, he goes where the holes are, so to speak. He normally is a an aggressive runner. I mean, I don't know that it was quite that much this past week for a variety of different reasons, but you know, he can run hard. You know, he's not the fastest guy in the world, but he's got enough speed to, you know, to get to second and third levels. He's a guy who's got some physicality to him. He's a decent size, you know, for a running back. So it's, you know, it takes more than an arm tackle to get him to the ground. But like I say, I mean, it's nobody's going to get 100 yards if you're not blocking somebody. So that's a big asset.
Coach, in reviewing the game Saturday, field position was absolutely incredible. What a big advantage you had in that. Is that kind of underlooked in the whole special teams realm, because that was special teams that caused a lot of that?
Well, you know, there's so many things you can look at, you know, probably statistically, but they bear out. I mean, they're proof of the pudding, I guess. You know, and special teams were, you know, very prominent in the game. You know, our special teams accounted for 18 points during the course of the ball game. You look at the opportunities we had offensively and moved the ball well at times, but couldn't sustain or finish drives. You know, we had, I mean, 3 of the first 4 possessions we had a fumble, a drop pass, and a penalty. You know, all 3 that cost us, you know, in all likelihood cost us points, you know, put us in position to, if not go in and score the touchdown, get the field goal up there. We had drives. I think we had 7 drives of somewhere between 60 and 70 yards, no less than 60 and no more than 70, which put you in scoring position every time. And out of that, we got 3 field goals. You know, so we left about whatever that would be, 20, 25, 26 points on the table. You know, so, you know, it's just let me say, you know, at this point in time, ineffectiveness to be able to, you know, put points on the board when we're in scoring position, number 1, and number 2, you know, making the mistakes that cost us, cost anybody. So. You know, so in my way of thinking, it's, you know, it's us. You know, as I've said so many times, it's not anybody else. It's just, you know, whether, you know, we do or don't do those things. You know, we score in the red zone. I think we were 40% in the red zone, which is in terms of touchdowns. Third down conversion rate was not good, which, you know, stymied some of that. 1 fourth down and that far, and we don't make it. You know, so I mean, there's a lot of different, and there's reasons why that, you know, those things took place. But nevertheless, I mean, those are the things. You're on the cusp of, you know, it could have been a totally different ball game, and that goes back to every ball game we played. You know, there's not one, you know, of the ball games that we have played, or at least of the 4 losses that we've had, that those things that I just mentioned didn't play a major role in the outcome of the ball game.
When you're 8 games into the season, how do you clean up these mistakes, lack of attention to detail? Because I don't remember many of your teams suffering that far into the season.
Well, I think part of it is, you know, we have to do, you know, we have to do a better job coaching our guys. Secondly, they have to do a better job of executing the things that they're coached to do. You know, but I understand your question, because if you had asked me that in the 3rd week, I'd have given you the same answer. But this is in the 8th week, or whatever it is, 9th. So we've, you know, obviously have failed to do that. And to me, that's as much as anything, it's, you know, it's a mentality of what it takes to be successful on the field. You know, it's discipline, and, you know, a lack of self-discipline takes away from your ability to focus on the things that you're doing. And, you know, if you fumble the ball, that's more focus than anything, which is created by a lack of self-discipline. If you get a penalty, you jump off sides, you hold somebody, etc. Those are things you're coached not to do, and that's a matter of, you know, the discipline not to do those things, you know, on and on. So, you know, it's a matter of us being more demanding, and our players, you know, realizing the mistakes that they, you know, that are ongoing, that need to get corrected. And when we say ongoing too, because you can look from, you know, if we talk about turning the ball over, you know, that's a general term, because there's a lot of different ways that the ball gets turned over. You know, you can say, well, there's only two, one by fumble, one by pass, but, you know, a ton of different things can happen in each of those areas that can create that, and it's not the same each week. And so, you know, you're kind of playing catch up sometimes, and that is, you know, okay, we got this corrected and we didn't turn the ball over doing this, but we didn't get this corrected, or it just hadn't happened before and it happened and we turned the ball over, and now we got to go correct that. And that can happen. That's true of, you know, every area where we're not as successful as we should be.
Alex Delton, is he on track to play this week, you feel like?
I think so. Mm-hmm.
And I hope we're not jinxing anything here, but the depth chart only shows 3 on the key with quarterbacks. We had to go to a 4th one. Who would you anticipate playing in the game?
Hall. It's him or me. It ain't gonna be me.
I kind of want to see that.
Coach, after the Kansas game, DJ Reed was talking about pass defense. And he said, we have to adjust, obviously, whether it's me following a receiver, we've got to do something because we're giving up too many yards in the passing game. So he's talking about possibly following a receiver. How much do you admire maybe Reed's ownership or leadership in the defensive secondary? And has Tom Hayes toyed with that notion of having him follow a receiver? If memory serves me correctly, I believe Terrence Newman was one of the last guys to do that.
Well, you know, Sims had, you know, 200 and whatever it was, 30 or 40 yards against us. I don't know exactly what it is. But, you know, they've, you know, look at Texas Tech, and Texas Tech's got 2 of the top, 8 receivers in the conference. You know, it's, I mean, you can do that. It kind of depends on, you know, a lot of different things. I mean, we have the capacity to do it. You know, the problem, you know, that it can solve one problem, I guess, and open the door for others. Then you have to say, okay, well, who take him? I mean, if we take DJ and take him away from being a corner and put him inside to cover somebody, you know, then who's gonna play that corner spot, and how effective can he be, and is the trade-off worth it or not? And that's something that we have to ask ourselves the question every week, you know, is whether that's you know, appropriate to do or not.
At this stage in the game, are there easy solutions for the pass defense right now, coming off of 2 straight 400-yard games, or is it?
Well, I don't think there's an easy solution to anything, because you're in a conference where you know, everybody's going to throw the ball around, and people are going to get yards on you. You know, I look at it. You know, I don't like to give up 400 yards of pass offense, nor do our defensive backs or our defensive coaches, and don't want to. But you know, Kansas had 8 consecutive drives in the first half in which they got 2 field goals. Not the first half, first 3 quarters. I mean, so even though they were getting a substantial amount of yardage, you know, they weren't getting the ball in the end zone, or didn't get it in there for 3 quarters. And, you know, the biggest issue that was created was, you know, just the big play element, you know, and we went through this, have gone through this before, you know, and they've got, I think 6 plays for 6 snaps for somewhere in the vicinity of 250, 260 yards, something like that. So that's what we have to be able to, you know, stop, or the big plays, or at least that's where we have to start. Now, we struggled with that early last year. We got it corrected. We had some issues, you know, earlier in the season, and we got it corrected, we thought, and then obviously it jumps back up and bites you again. And, you know, part of that, you know, we're facing a team that's going to go ultra fast this week in Texas Tech, and we've got to be able to get lined up. The last touchdown that you know, that KU got against us with you know, the pass down the middle. You know, we've got 2 guys that would be instrumental in defending against that particular pass that are still trying to get oriented as to how to line up, where to line up, because of, you know, the speed of the tempo of the offense. And we didn't respond as well. So, you know, it wasn't, in that case, it wasn't a matter of coverage. It was a matter of getting yourself prepared to take the snap. and get focused on what the play is going to be. I think they have, a couple of their special teams units are playing, very well. I think from an offensive standpoint, as I mentioned before, I think they've created more balance in their offense, which I think has not only helped their offense, but it's helped their defense as well, which helps them, collectively. So.
Coach, I think, of course, the general school of thought is it's your job to coach players, but how much of your role is it to coach coaches?
Well, I think that's a prominent role for all head coaches.
Going back to the question about the quarterbacks, with as experienced as Jesse is, if he didn't practice all week or didn't get a certain amount of reps, would you be comfortable playing on a Saturday, or do you always have like a certain amount of live practice reps a quarterback would need during the week to be comfortable?
Well, he would have to be on the field with us, at the latter stage of the week in order to get on the field, and he has to be, obviously has to be healthy enough to go. I don't want to risk, getting him banged up. And
I know immediately after Saturday's game, you said you felt that Skylar and Alex Delton both played well, given the circumstances. After watching film, do you feel the same way, or do you feel better or worse about how each of them?
No, I feel about the same. I think all of it was pretty evident during the course of the ball game. Not without, some mistakes, both of them, but I thought both of them played well, handled, the circumstances. Threw the ball fine, ran the ball okay. Skylar, I was immensely proud of Skylar because he hadn't been on the field before, and I thought his poise and how he presented himself, managed the game, and handled all the things outside of the physical things, handled all the mental things, I thought quite well. Did a nice job. Showed some leadership as well.
Will he get more first-team reps this week just in case he needs to be ready, or do you want to try to stick with what you guys have been doing most of the time?
Well, he will. He's been getting some first team reps. Just to what degree changes somewhat every day depending on everybody's health.
Coach, I noticed that Texas Tech, finished last in takeaways in the Big 12 last season, and now they're at the top of the league in takeaways. And I was just curious if you've been able to identify exactly the reasoning for that, what they're showing you on tape, why they are getting more takeaways this season as opposed to this.
Well, I think in the secondary, they've just been they're an aggressive team in the secondary. They also are a heavily penalized team, and those two things kind of go hand in hand sometimes. Pass interference calls normally come from very aggressive secondary players, and yet the very aggressive secondary players get turnovers as well. So that's they're on both ends of that. I think they do a nice job trying to strip the ball. I think their defensive players are, attuned to that. You see guys trying to, slap the ball out of a player's hand or pull it out of their hands. You see that quite a bit and seeing it being successful from time to time.
I got one more. Do you guys as a team do anything to celebrate Halloween, or do you just go on as normal?
It'll be a normal day tomorrow. Yes. Today is Halloween today. There you go. Right. I thought, what is today? Is today the 30th or 31st? It is 31st. Okay, I guess it is. Well, that being the case, no, we don't do anything special to celebrate it.